It is the 4th day of July 2023 and you're just in time for another edition of News Tonight. Well, we have so much lined up for you in our bulletin tonight, but first, the highlights. Tonight, 54% of Kenyans are certain the government will fail to deliver affordable houses, with only 11 believing that the houses will be delivered. Also tonight, the burden of higher taxes on fuel products passed on to Kenyans.
Kila mtu amefinyika kusema tu tuongeze itoke 70 kuje 100. Customer ataramika. Lazima itakuwa na commotion. Lazima tutakuwa na shida.
As some passengers are forced to pay twice the fare they were paying before the increased taxes on fuel. Azimio coalition leader Raila Odinga puts President William Ruto on notice, telling him to brace for the launch of the country's third liberation this coming Friday.
But it is not just a Kamkunji in Nairobi, but a Kamkunji across the country where this third liberation will be launched.
Now, my name is Dennis Otieno. Our sign language interpreter is Catherine Simaloi. I trust you're doing well. Welcome to the broadcast. Now, on to our top story tonight. Only 3% of Kenyans earn a monthly income of more than 50,000 shillings, while a whopping 38% of Kenyans do not receive a monthly income at all. These are part of the bracing set of numbers from trends and research firm TIFA. This even as 69% of Kenyans do not support the housing levy, with 54% of them feeling that the houses won't be delivered. Paul Kirobi with some significant numbers from that report.
Category of 50,000 and above, only half of them say that they're able to. That's how pressed Kenyans are, as we've all seen, inflation. I think
conducted between June 23rd and 30th, the latest survey by research firm TIFA has some eye-opening figures, numbers that speak to a dire outlook on the state of unemployment, monthly income, and even views on the latest policies proposed by the Kenya Kwanza government. For example, only 3% of Kenyans get monthly income of 50,000 shillings and above. Only 10% of Kenyans earn between 20 to 50,000 shillings monthly, while 12% of Kenyans earn between 5,000 to 10,000 shillings monthly income. Furthermore, a large number of people do not receive an income every month. Nearly 1/3 of Kenyans who are now jobless have never been employed, with 8% of jobless Kenyans having worked in the past. A third of the Kenyan workforce is self-employed and only 1 in 10 employed full-time. What about savings with a high cost of living in the country due to high prices of commodities? The answers are interesting. In these harsh economic conditions, at least 44% of people earning between 20,000 to 50,000 shillings save some of their monies, while only 28% of those earning less than 5,000 shillings save their monies.
because most prices have not decreased, so that's not very surprising. It wouldn't have surprised me if there was 100% who said none. If you people know of any kind of commodity that price has gone down since last year, tell me, I'll start eating it. Peanuts? I don't know. Jugu? Sijui, ndizi? Okay, ndizi are still, when I buy them at the kiosk, are still 10 shillings each. They haven't changed.
What about President Ruto's plan, the housing levy, where the employed will be required to contribute at least 1.5% of their monthly salary? Well, 69% of Kenyans do not support this agenda. And even then, about 54% of Kenyans are certain the government will fail to deliver the houses, with only 11 believing that the houses will be delivered.
A quarter of them, 25%, say that sooner or later they expect to be paying the levy. I'm not sure how. Maybe they don't understand that it's only for formally employed people, like I guess most of you.
Paul Kirobi, TV47, Nairobi.
Well, thank you, Paul Kirobi, for that report. Meanwhile, Deputy President Rigathi Gachagua and other leaders Tuesday joined friends and families of the Londiani crash victims at the interdenominational prayers in Kericho County. where he said that the government is taking short-term and long-term measures for road safety to be part of its legacy. Chichi Josephine tells us more.
They'll be able to rise up.
It was a day marked by sadness, shock and anxiety as calls for road safety measures took center stage at the interdenominational prayers for Londiani crash victims in Kericho County.
As a church, as a priest, as your servant, Lord.
Deputy President Rigathi Gachagua, as he condoled with the families of those who lost their loved ones in the tragic accident that claimed at least 50 people, said that the government would support the families, including offering financial support to aid in burial preparations.
Ningetaka kutangaza ya kwamba Rais amepeana directive ya kwamba tutasaidia. Kwa hivyo after tumefanya mchango, our regional commissioner is here. Atakaa na familia, muone pahali iko gap, ndio na sisi tukuja tujaze tuwasaidie.
In his speech, the DP called on road users to be vigilant to avert similar occurrences in the future, while also noting that the government would do everything in its power to enhance road safety.
I want to assure you of the support of the President and I and the rest of us in coming up with practical interventions and solutions to bring sanity on our roads. I know some of the measures will be a little bit painful. I want to urge the people of Kenya to accept that for us to have meaning of change, there are few people here and there who will be affected, but for the better good for the people of Kenya.
The Ministry of Transport, through the Cabinet Secretary Kipchumba Murkomen, has also expressed that it will issue new regulations through the National Assembly that will see a lot of improvement through the use of technology as a way of reducing road accidents.
We have decided as a ministry that we will issue new regulations and we will need support of Parliament. And when the regulations get to Parliament soon, Your Excellency, we want all commercial and PSV vehicles and school transport vehicles must, the word is must, be fitted with dashboard cameras and vehicle telematics.
County governments have also been urged to work with the national government to create safe spaces for small business traders to carry out their businesses and avoid endangering their lives.
We will remove all markets from the road reserve. I want to ask every one of us to give our Kenya National Highway and all the roads agencies a maximum support to make sure that our people are going to operate safely.
Leaders who accompanied the Deputy President, including Cabinet Secretaries, Governors and members of the National Assembly, echoed sentiments by the DP and called on road users to ensure that vehicles are roadworthy. Chichi Josephine, TV47.
I want to speak.
Now, from the prioritizing of road safety in the country to the codependence of the judiciary and the executive. Now, barely a year into the tenure of the Kenya Kwanza government, could the country witness a repeat of the cold relations between the executive arm of government and the judiciary, as witnessed in the previous administration? Mwige William with the details.
Now you have this bench majority.
The recent ruling by a three-judge bench which revoked the appointment of 50 chief administration secretaries by President William Ruto has further widened the wedge between the executive and the judiciary, opening a gateway of differences, with elected leaders allied to the head of state publicly telling of the Martha Koome-led arm. The Monday ruling by the Employment and Labour Relations Court, which quashed the appointment, receiving sharp criticism, with Nandi Senator Samson Cherargei leading the onslaught against judiciary, stating on his Twitter handle, and I quote in part, "The judiciary has gone rogue by ruling that creation of CAS's position is unconstitutional without considering merits of the case." The second time Senator took issue with the Chief Justice, questioning a track record in part of a tweet, and I quote, "Who has a track record of Chief Justice Martha Koome underperformance in judiciary? Judiciary must be accountable to Kenyans. It is not an exclusive club." End of quote. Senior Counsel Ahmed Nasir Abdullahi, who is perceived to be allied to President William Ruto, took to social media with a piece of advice to the ruling regime, which read, and I quote, The 2010 Constitution is a most powerful antidote to impunity and unchecked executive power. It taught President Uhuru painful lessons. It will teach President William Ruto painful lessons. It will teach anyone who breaks it painful lessons. The Kenya Kwanza government also received an unfavorable court order from the court on June 30th, when High Court Judge Mugure Thande issued orders suspending the implementation of the Finance Act 2023 after President William Ruto assented to the bill on the 26th of June following its passage in Parliament. In the orders by Judge Mugure after Busia Senator Okiya Mtata moved to court challenging the act, slamming brakes on the implementation of the act. Although some government agencies such as EPRA have already commenced implementation in form of the review of fuel prices following an increment VAT on petroleum products to 16% from 8%. And on the 29th of May, High Court Judge Lawrence Mugambi issued an order suspending the decision of President Ruto to establish the Commission of Inquiry to probe the Shakahola deaths. In his ruling, Mugambi said it will not be in the public interest for the commission to start its sitting when Kenyans know the Senate and the National Police are still probing the Shakahola deaths. This followed after the Raila-led Azimio la Umoja coalition filed a case in court accusing President William Ruto of undermining the authority of the Danson Mungatana Senate-led ad hoc committee then already formed. While the three arms of government are required to work independently, the recent trend of such unfavorable rulings harkens to the early days that led to the frosty relationship between former President Uhuru Kenyatta and the judiciary. Perhaps only time can and will tell. Moige William, TV 47.
Now, tonight, Azimio coalition leader Raila Odinga has put President William Ruto on notice, telling him to brace for the launch of the country's third liberation this coming Friday. In the opposition's resolve to rally the country to boycott, tax and initiate civil disobedience at the Kamkunji grounds and select regions countrywide. Odinga's Sabasaba protest launch will also see the opposition launch a nationwide signature collection to signify the opposition's rejection of the Kenya Kwanza regime. Our senior political affairs reporter Apollo Kamau with more.
A crucial sitting of Azimio principals gave the green light on the opposition's Friday Sabasaba protest launch, which will kick off a tax boycott and civil disobedience.
Ruto.
Azimio leader Raila Odinga terming it drastic action against the regime for ignoring Kenyans in the pursuit of punitive taxes, further criticizing the removal of crucial subsidies to cushion Kenyans from the high cost of living.
It has become clear that we are dealing with a dictator who also has no respect for wananchi. Ruto has become a heartless tyrant.
Azimio's fresh onslaught against the Ruto regime will be unveiled in Kamukunji and selected towns, aligned to the country's former 8 provinces, from which the opposition hopes to galvanize a non-violent movement, with fixed dates for the protests after Friday yet to be revealed.
But it is not just a Kamukunji in Nairobi, but a Kamukunji across the country, where this third liberation will be launched.
The return of the Sabasaba protest is a throwback, originating and coinciding with the 7th of July 1990 Sabasaba protests, which Odinga was part of, that brought multi-party democracy eventually in 1981. The protests, a major test to President William Ruto, whose camp has termed the tax boycott as economic sabotage.
All I have told our friends Raila Odinga and company is let us not engage in destruction of property. Let us not engage in violence. Protests is perfect.
Whether the civil society movement will join Azimio in the demos, as they did in the 90s, remains to be seen. Apol Kamau, TV 47.
Well, thank you, Apollo Kamau, for that report. Now, after the Energy and Petroleum Regulatory Authority, EPRA, increased the price of petrol by 7.4% and made it go to a record of 195.53 shillings. Now, passengers will be forced to pay twice the fare they were paying before the fuel price increased, as drivers say that the passengers will incur the burden. Our reporter Daniel Kihoro reports.
Despite a court order of suspending the implementation of New Finance Act of 2023, Energy and Petroleum Regulatory Authority (EPRA) increased the price of petroleum product, an increase in the tax charged on the petroleum product from 8 to 16%, which has not been well received by passengers. Drivers on their part also says that the action will disrupt their travel and slow down the business.
Unaona kutakuwa na commotion kwa sababu kila mtu amefinyika. Kila mtu amefinyika, kusema tu tuongeze itoke 70 kuje 100, customer talalamika. Lazima itakuwa na commotion. Lazima tutakuwa na shida. Sijui itakuwa namna gani.
Juu hata unasapata driver akiendesha gari, unaweza pata upepe abiria kuanzia Nairobi mpaka Kericho, upate kama dereva ajaweka pesa kwa mfuko.
According to Benson Wanyoike, the chairman of Embasava Sacco, they will now pass the burden to passengers by increasing the fare.
Tumejaribu, lakini ile kitu ningesema imekuwa ngumu. Sababu unajua hasa kama serikali imepitisha maneno ya kuongeza mafuta na already wamedeclare hiyo, sisi hatuna budi. Tumejaribu kuongea na customers wakiteta, na ni kweli mwananchi wa kawaida amefinyika, lakini sasa tutafanya namna gani? Na ukienda kwa pump hawataki kujua.
Kenya will now have to embrace new price following the statement made by Treasurer CS Professor Njuguna Ndung'u, who says that the increase in taxes is the one of the measure that will help the country to avoid debt. Daniel Kihoro, TV47, Nairobi.
Meanwhile, co-chair of the Parliamentary Bipartisan Talks Committee between Kenya Kwanza and Azimio, George Murugara, has confirmed the process of selecting new IEBC chairperson and commissioners will go on as previously planned. However, Azimio leader Raila Odinga says new IEBC officials cannot be selected through a process led by Kenya Kwanza alone, adding that such a commission will not represent interests of Kenyans at large. Mike Kagwongo with the details.
Parliamentary bipartisan talks between Azimio and Kenya Kwanza may not resume anytime soon after Raila Odinga foot soldiers failed to attend a joint meeting today. The committee's co-chairperson George Murugara said despite a letdown from their colleagues in Azimio, they will proceed with plans of formulating a new independent electoral and boundaries commission, IEBC.
The process of recruitment by the selection panel, as far as we are concerned, is not hindered by any order, by any directive, or by anything from anyone, and therefore it should proceed as the law prescribes.
His sentiments came few hours after Azimio legislators were a no-show during a meeting at the Bomas of Kenya Tuesday. In early May, Azimio leaders dropped out of the talks after misunderstanding between the parties. Some of the issues they failed to agree on were bringing down the cost of unga, opening the 2022 IEBC presidential server, suspending recruitment of IEBC chairperson and commissioners, and calls by President Ruto to stop interfering with the affairs of the Jubilee Party.
The issues affecting the country, all the issues that are being mentioned and are affecting the country must be resolved in the legal process that is provided for in our laws, right from the Constitution to Acts of Parliament and regulations.
Murugara insisted that Azimio is yet to officially pull out of the talks, which means any decision taken by the committee will mean both parties were involved in decision-making, following the agreement framework signed by the two parties.
There are other clauses which provide for how a party or a part of the talks committee can actually exit. That exiting has not taken place, and this is why we say the talks remain.
And we hope that we will not reach that stage.
Azimio leader Raila Odinga, however, says new IEBC officials cannot be selected through a process led by Kenya Kwanza, adding that such a commission will not represent interests of Kenyans at large.
And these are not Kenya Kwanza elections. They're national elections. They are competition. So Kenya Kwanza cannot solely, alone, single-handedly appoint the referee in the election.
With suspended recruitment of new members of the Electoral Commission poised to resume in earnest, Odinga insists their counterparts hoodwinked his team and will not continue engaging any longer.
They even refused to stop that task force from proceeding ahead. The task force has said that they never stopped. They never had been told to stop at all. So they basically were just playing a game with us.
However, Murugara maintained that he would have committed an illegality should he have signed the letter ordering IEBC Selection Committee to stop its activities.
They were inviting me to commit an illegality by giving IEBC directives, and the IEBC does not take directives from anyone. So I actually told them I wasn't able to sign those letters because to me they were not proper. They were not well done.
According to Murugara, his co-chair Otiende Amolo knew that he would have gone against the law since the bipartisan committee had no powers to interfere with the work of IEBC Selection Committee. Mike Kagwongo, TV 47, Nairobi.
Now, from the bipartisan talks to the verdict made recently on the 50 chief administrative secretaries. And the fate of the 50 chief administrative secretaries remains in limbo following the High Court's verdict that the position is unconstitutional. The appointment came with great public uproar, as this would overburden Kenyans who are already bearing the brunt of the high cost of living.
Azimio One Kenya leader Raila Odinga has expressed his contentment with the ruling, saying the court must take their responsibility without political interference, a day after the High Court quashed the appointment of the 50 chief administrative secretaries by President William Ruto following a petition by the Law Society of Kenya. The verdict has elicited mixed reactions from Kenyans and opposition leaders.
But we think that the court has acted correctly in doing what is right. No, the court has just upheld the law, what the Constitution says. They've interpreted it correctly.
That decision is a reflection of what the common mwananchi was thinking about, because there is no need of us wasting more money on something which is unconstitutional. It is not enshrined in the Constitution, it is not envisaged in the Constitution, and therefore there is no need of wasting taxpayers' money on something that is not watertight to justify any conviction.
For as long as court orders are violated, then we will never stop talking about impunity and the rule of law. So long as the court order stands, then it must be followed. If a decision is made on appeal, then that can be overturned at that point. But for now, the court judgment should stand.
On the other hand, leaders allied to the Kenya Kwanza government have castigated the courts as they say the endless court cases are derailing the government's agenda.
Tafadhali the judiciary, musikue munakubali kuentertain any Tom, Dick and Harry. Kwa sababu mtu anakuja analeta maneno sijui nini, court order inapatianwa. Hii nchi we inherited a dilapidated economy. So we have to work tirelessly to ensure that the agenda and the manifesto ya chama chetu cha UDA na chama na Kenya Kwanza tusukume mbele.
Hakuna haja kesi ikienda kotini a very sensitive one kama hii ya revenue. Sisi hapa Kisii tulipiga yes. Even the judiciary, naomba tu wacha serikali ikiendelea, as you listen for the cases, hapana peana njati na kusimamisha serikali. Let everything ikiendelea, kesi ikiendelea, uamuzi mfanya haraka tumalize story ikwishe.
The position was introduced in 2018 by former President Uhuru Kenyatta, a move that was seen as a way of rewarding his political loyalists, a scenario that has played out the same way this year. Flora Limuki, TV 47.
Well, thank you, Flora Limuki, for that report. Meanwhile, the Long Distance Drivers and Conductors Association has threatened to go for a countrywide strike on July 12th this year in resistance to the National Transport and Safety Authority's move to get them to go back to school for more driving lessons. The transport stakeholders calling on the government to improve transport services. Eric Matika reports.
Speaking in Mombasa County today, the drivers are threatening to withdraw their services, terming the government's plan through the National Transport and Safety Authority to retest all drivers at a fee of 1,050 shillings as uncalled for.
Tarehe 12 tutakuwa na mgomo kwa sababu ya hiyo matakwa yetu, tuongee kwa maelewano, amicable way. Classes za madereva, NTSA system yao imepoteza classes za madereva. Unapata mtu alilipia hiyo class ambayo ni ya trailer attic, lakini akienda kurenew leseni hizo classes haziko.
The drivers demanding that should the government insist on the fresh driving lessons, then the lessons should be at the expense of the state. This even as they took the opportunity to denounce exploitation by traffic officers.
Hapa Kenya unapata exploitation ya askari wa trafiki. Askari wa trafiki kuanzia Mariakani, kituo cha Mariakani, kituo cha Motito, kituo cha Sultan Hamud, kituo cha Makindu. Ukitoka Nairobi unaenenda kituo cha Mau Summit. Hao maaskari kazi yao kubwa ni kuchukua hongo kwa madereva. Na kile kitu ambacho wanafanya ni kulazimisha. Na wanajua kuna system ambayo wanaweza kuitumia.
The drivers affirming that they possessed all necessary certifications expressed concern that the calls to retest and retrain all drivers will lead to many job losses among truck drivers in the country.
Mtu ameendesha gari miaka 30, 40, kuna mzee sasa ana miaka 80 na analea watoto wake ni ile leseni. Anaenda anapata hiyo hati kimetolewa. Ikishatolewa naambiwa arudi shule. Yule mtu ana akili ya kushika zile vitu ziko pale. Hiyo ni kitu ambacho moja imetukera sana sisi kama madereva wa masafa marefu.
They are now calling on the government to involve them in decision making on matters that concern the roads, promising to down their tools until the matter is fully sorted out. Eric Matika, TV47.
Now, as the probe into the 3.7 billion shillings mosquito net scandal intensifies, former Principal Secretary of Medical Services at the Ministry of Health, Engineer Peter Tum, on Tuesday appeared before the Senate Health Committee where he vehemently distanced himself from the bungled procurement process, further insisting that he has no idea as to why he was transferred to the Ministry of Sports. Elizabeth Atieno now reports.
Sports Principal Secretary, who is the former Principal Secretary under State Department of Medical Services, now maintains that his then department at the Ministry of Health was in no way involved in the 3.7 billion mosquito net scandal, since in Executive Order 1 of 2023 dated January 6th, malaria and TB were placed under the Department of Public Health and Professional Standards, a position previously led by Principal Secretary Josephine Mburu, who was sent packing.
The State Department of Medical Services was not responsible for the LLINS procurement, as this was a mandate of the State Department for Public Health and Professional Standards under the malaria function.
If surely you had no role in any of these issues, why were you then moved to the Sports Ministry?
So, this one I might not be really sure why he moved me to sports. I submit.
Engineer Tum further passed the baton to the National Treasury and the Kenya Medical Supplies Agency, KEMSA, saying they were in charge of procurement funds that were offered by the Global Fund in the country, and that the Ministry of Health is only tasked with providing technical support.
When you talk about my department, for instance, the medical services, there wasn't anything that we did procure verbally. There isn't anything that we give instructions verbally.
Is to make sure, because we are the custodians of money, one, what we are given, is it in line with the work plan of Global Fund? Is it in line with the agreement which we have already signed? If it is not, we engage them, we talk with them.
Kenya has two funding entities for the procurement of nets, which is the Global Fund and the US President's Malaria Initiative, PMI. Global Fund was only procuring pyrethroid nets, while PMI is in charge of procuring PBO nets. However, a heated moment emerged in the meeting when Senator Ledamo Lekina sought clarity on the specification of nets proposed by the Global Fund and those procured by KEMSA.
Who advised the then PS to write to KEMSA to tell KEMSA that they had omitted this PBO, yet you're the primary recipient of the funds, yet you're the one who goes through the pre-tender requirements, and you notify the Ministry of Health, and I assume the former PS Josephine was in touch with Global Fund, and they had this information that Global Fund do not fund PBO nets. Why then would the tender be extended or be stopped?
Global Fund has never, because this is not the first campaign which Global Fund has done. It has never procured PBOs. The people who normally procure PBOs as PMI, and even the ministry knows, and even KEMSA knows.
According to the National Treasury's response, the Division of Malaria Program submitted the nets requirement in January 2022. On the 2nd of September 2022, the Global Fund approved the procurement of 12.6 million nets, and on the 30th of October 2022, the National Treasury received procurement requisition from the Ministry of Health and later wrote a procurement approval letter to KEMSA on the 7th of November 2022. The problem, however, emerged in the tender evaluation process.
The procurement process was found to be not in compliance with the PPADA. Therefore, the procurement was terminated before notification stage and transferred to Global Fund pooled procurement.
As the probe into the net scandal intensifies, the Ministries of Health and Treasury have reaffirmed that the 23 counties targeted in the mass malaria campaign will get the nets from November 2023 to January 2024. Elizabeth Atieno, TV47, Nairobi.
Well, thank you, Elizabeth Atieno, for that report. Now, from the probe on the KEMSA scandal, we'll do a short break, but don't go too far. We'll be right back with more news.
You are watching TV47, the home of untold stories.
Nothing is more fulfilling than learning in an institution that understands your career needs. At Equip Africa Institute, which is a TVET Authority accredited institution affiliated to Mount Kenya University, we offer competitive, market-driven programs in a serene environment. You can undertake diploma, certificate, and artisan programs, and our entry grade is C and below. You can also pursue a driving course at Equip Africa Driving School. Enroll in any of our campuses in Thika, Nairobi, Kisii, Nakuru, Malindi, Kitale, and Mombasa. Equip Africa Institute, promoting competence, innovation, and excellence.
Radio 47, tuko nawe mchana kutwa na usiku kucha.
Professor Kithure Kindiki has trained his guns on the Al-Shabaab terror group and promised to crush it. Speaking in Wajir and Mandera counties, where he was on an official tour, the CS assured local leaders and residents that the government will provide round-the-clock security to contractors building key roads such as the Garissa, Wajir, Mandera and Lamu Mandera roads that have been the targets of terrorists. Here is the full report.
On his one-day tour of the North, Interior CS Professor Kithure Kindiki landed in Wajir County in the morning. The day will see him traverse the vast North, crisscrossing Wajir, Mandera and Garissa counties for a series of engagements with counties' security and intelligence committees, leaders and residents. Here, the CS was quick to assure the country that the government shall defeat Al-Shabaab and all violent extremists.
Tutafanya vile iwezekanavyo. Na mimi nawahakikishia kama waziri wa usalama wa nchi ya Kenya, tutashinda Al-Shabaab na magaidi wote. We'll crush them. We will crush them.
The North has fallen victim to threats of national security that have destabilized communities in northern Kenya. The government, he said, has prioritized and upscaled engagement with local communities to help in identifying and flushing out Al-Shabaab terror group members and other extremists. Community-led and intelligence-based operations, according to the CS, are the ultimate solution in crushing the Al-Shabaab terror group.
Tumeona ya kwamba vikosi vyetu vya usalama vikifanya kazi pamoja, idara ya polisi, idara yetu ya majeshi wa ulinzi wa taifa, idara yetu ya ujasusi NIS, idara ya afisa wa polisi wa ziada NPR, matokeo yanakuwa ni matokeo mazuri. Vile vile tumeona ya kwamba wakati tunajumuisha jamii, wazee na wenye wananchi ambao ni wenye kutoka pale, inarahisisha kasi yetu ya kulinda usalama.
To deal with modern day and complex security challenges, the government will, in the 2023-2024 financial year, invest more than 20 billion shillings to procure equipment, including MRAPs, APCs, drones, choppers and night vision aided equipment to ensure officers are secure as they combat armed criminals, among them terrorists and bandits. His visit comes at the backdrop of increased attacks in the north. More than 30 people, the majority of them security officials, have been killed in separate attacks by the terrorist group near the Kenya-Somalia border. Officials say the attacks started after Mogadishu launched attacks on the terrorist territories, displacing them. After a lull of almost 8 months, the first attack was reported in Mandera on May 2, 2023.
Recently, we've had attacks again, around the same corridor. We have a second road, which is very critical for opening up this area. And that is the road from Isiolo, Mudagashe, Abaswen, Wajir, all the way to Mandera, almost 1,000 kilometers. Now that road also has been awarded tenders. Various sections have been given to different contractors.
The government will also provide round-the-clock security to contractors building key roads such as Garissa, Wajir, Mandera and Lamu-Mandera roads that have been the targets of terrorists.
And we have also experienced again possibilities of threats and attacks on those corridors. Yet these development projects are at the core of opening up northern Kenya for economic development and also improving security. And that is why the enemy is attacking contractors and other people, including engineers, because they know once those roads are tarmacked, the place will be more secure.
CS Kindiki also visited security camps to motivate frontline security officers and met county security and intelligence committees.
Meanwhile, mediation talks between the National Police Service Commission and the Office of the Inspector General of Police to resolve a row over the promotion of 515 officers appear to have collapsed. The matter now appears to be headed back to court for the interpretation of the Constitution on the mandate of each office following the deadlock. Appearing before Senate Committee on National Security, Defense and Foreign Relations, National Police Service Commission Chair Eliud Kinuthia blamed the Inspector General of Police Japheth Kome for alleged reluctance to resolve the matter, maintaining that his commission was still open to talks should the IG have a change of heart. The Labour Court had ordered the Commission to immediately convene a meeting of all parties in the case to consider resolving the dispute amicably, a plan that has now hit a snag.
Promotions, the violated articles is Article 10 and Article 232 on fairness, on equal opportunity, on gender, regional and ethnicity, and also all manner of protection of a workforce in any institution. And therefore, I highlighted this because you can see clearly the difference. When it comes to 246.3, it is about the actual management of human resource of the National Police Service. It is in the wisdom of the writers of this Constitution that police problem, what is causing problem of stress and psychosocial disorders, problem of low morale, problem of officers feeling neglected if they are not known by anybody. Chronism, another problem, is because the problem was in the management of human resource. That is what informed the coming up of this commission. And in that wisdom, this commission then is under duty to protect constitutionalism as far as those areas are concerned.
Bwana CEO, yes. What is then the current position with regard to this? There was the action by the IG. You acted by revoking. You advised them, and then you advertised. Then the IG advised them not to do anything, or if you do, you'll be punished. Then reconciliation failed. So what is the current status of the 514 officers?
I've observed like that what was stopped is implementation of the promotion. Yeah. Implementation of the promotion means dress appropriate, pay increase, and then you proceed to your duty. And because the IG and the services given direction that that to be done, that was stopped. So that the officers remain or allow time for this process that is ongoing. Two, what was also stayed or stopped is the unlawful order that don't apply. Because the commission had said the alternative route to doing it is application. So officers were allowed to apply at their discretion, but you know it is a choice. If you're given the way to get a promotion on a job, it is your choice. So that is the opening that is there. Now, when we went to the mediation.
Now, from the mediation talks between the police service to improving matters education in the country, Principal Secretary, State Department for Basic Education, Dr. Belio Kipsang, has assured county governments full support from the Ministry of Education in ensuring children at the grassroots level receive quality basic education as part of empowering their lives through devolution.
In his speech during the 2023 Children Devolution Conference at the Safaricom Foundation Academy, PS Belio Kipsang has noted that teenage pregnancy and drug abuse have contributed to the rise in number of school dropouts, especially at the northern part of the country, while highlighting key elements that the Ministry of Education is focusing on to ensure quality education among children. The PS has called for mutual collaboration of all education stakeholders in boosting learning at the county levels.
The government and through the Ministry of Education is implementing a number of initiatives and programs to enhance access to quality education, because it is our responsibility as parents, number one, who take care of you as our daughters and sons.
The conference that has drawn pupils and teachers from all 47 counties is set to amplify voices of the children and find their place in the actualization of devolution in the country. In efforts to ensure this is done, Kiambu Governor Kimani Wamatangi and his Wajir counterpart Ahmed Abdullahi have reiterated their full commitment in putting a smile into the lives of children during their tenure of reign.
Under our program, every child in all these centers in Kiambu County will be provided with nutrition or nutritious uji or porridge in the morning, and every child in Kiambu County will have an egg every day for 3 days in a week.
And the whole idea is to see what has worked in the last 10 years and what could have worked better.
Parents, teachers and students who attended the conference have expressed their satisfaction towards devolution, noting that it has helped them acquire services at the doorstep, which costed them time and money prior to the inception of devolved units.
Tumeleta hawa wanafunzi ili watoe sauti kuhusu mahitaji yao, hasa sana watu wenye mahitaji maalum. Wakitoa sauti watapata faida wakirudi kwa kaunti zao. Kwa muda mwingi wametengwa, wajaonekana kuwa watu wa maana katika society, lakini vile wamekuja hapa najua watasikika na watajiunga na wenzao na watatambulika kuwa watu wa maana katika society.
10 years into devolution will mean nothing if the national government will not empower children across all spheres of the country. Jackson Chacha, TV47 at the M-Pesa Foundation Academy, Thika, Kiambu County.
And it's time to count the costs and shift focus to the business news. Now, in the business news, edible oil manufacturers believe if the government allocated land for palm oil cultivation, the subsector could take a bigger market share in the East African region. Kenya Association of Manufacturers board member Bill Okero says adopting vertical integration, a method that focuses on capacity building each player in the production chain for a better outcome, will ensure all raw materials, particularly the most expensive, are found locally, which will benefit manufacturers and consumers alike.
Kenya's average edible oil production annually is 600,000 tons, which could easily be covered by domestic production of raw materials with a potential output of 2 million tons per annum. By 2028, the market share for Kenyan edible oil is expected to grow by 14% to account for 1.04 billion shillings in the GDP. Manufacturers are, however, worried that this projection could be significantly compromised by external competitors who circle in as the cost of the commodity continues to soar.
Edible oils industry in Kenya, specifically the manufacturing sector of the edible oils, it's one of the largest manufacturing sectors in Kenya. I think after the flour, big flour maize flour, probably it will be the third largest manufacturing sector in this country. We have over 13 companies that are manufacturing and have capacity of over 2 million metric tons. With investments in excess of 100 billion shillings. With over 10,000 employees directly.
The country is currently working at 40% of its potential in the production of edible oils, a number it has failed to push past due to various hampers.
So we have, the only thing that is not there, which we have, you've heard in the presentation, is the backward integration on the farming side. The value addition on the side of farming. We don't have palm oil plantations.
Through trade deals with countries such as Malaysia, crude palm oil could be cheaply imported for local processing and fortification, but manufacturers are still dabbling with the idea of adopting a 100% local value chain adoption, including sourcing raw materials domestically.
That the future will be very bright for this industry, and the industry is willing to work with the government, but they also need support from the government. Because this is a very crucial industry, because if there's anything that any nation in the world today will be concerned about, is their food security. And I think this is a critical aspect of our, because it affects many of the foods that we use. And, so I think it's very important that the government, engages the industry and work with them to ensure that the food security in this particular sector is maintained.
Meanwhile, the country's economic growth slackened for the first quarter of this year, declining by 0.9%. The gross domestic product, which grew by 6.2% at a similar period last year, dropped to 5.3%, mainly due to significant spikes in food and energy prices and the depreciation of the Kenyan shilling. Sectors like agriculture, however, had a positive rebound this year compared to the first quarter of 2022 due to an increase in rainfall, growing by 5.8%. Other sectors that showed good performance include accommodation and food services with a 21.5% growth, ICT with an 8.7% growth, and wholesale and retail trade with a 5.7% growth.